not at the time. I mean, it's crazy that we're sitting here 35 years later from that point in time and talking about the show, and that I never would have guessed that we would be sitting here talking about the show at this point. But in terms of, I think we were cautiously optimistic. We had produced three specials for NBC called Missing Have You Seen This Person? And those shows located a few different people, and I was like, and that was kind of the inspiration behind broadening it out to not just missing persons, but different kinds of unsolved mysteries. So we were hoping that the audience would start to solve the mysteries. That's always been the premise, is to solve these cases. And so in the first episode of the first season, when we solved something, we were all like, this just might work. And then we started doing the updates. And I think the updates are one of the things that the viewers really like. They like coming back every week and finding out, is there anything new, what happened in those cases. And we're still updating those shows, every a couple times a year. Somebody gets let out of prison, we need to report that, or somebody is captured. DNA didn't exist then, so now there's a lot of cases that we profile that are being solved by DNA. So cases are still getting solved. So we still get as excited about a case that gets solved now as we did back in the day when we were doing the series. It was really, really fun. I conducted the interviews with everyone who was interviewed, and I heard stories that I had never heard before, because John and I we were in the office, we were executive producing, so we didn't get to go out on the field. In the first episodes we did, but then once it turned into a series, we had to stay back. And I had not heard some of those stories, and some of them I was like, oh my gosh, I'm surprised so somebody didn't get hurt. And looking at the clips, that was a challenge, is going through. We didn't go through all of them, but there were, we produced 1,300 stories, not episodes, but segments over the years, and going through those and trying to cull out the ones that were the strongest. But what we did is we did the interviews first, and then we keyed off of everyone's stories and went in and put those stories together. Like Anastasia, for instance, we knew we were going to be interviewing John Joseph, who was the director on that. So we knew we were going to use that story. But going to Russia and all the costumes and the language challenges, I hadn't heard a lot about that. So it was fun. It was fun. It was great to look at the shows and just remember how much production value those episodes had. They really were little mini movies that those directors were producing, and we didn't micromanage. We didn't have the time to micromanage what the directors were doing. They just did an amazing job. The directors and the producers, everybody. There were hundreds, over 600 people who worked on Unsolved at some point. It's amazing. Very into mysteries. I grew up on Nancy Drew books, mysteries, and would read them. I had a few of them, and I would just read them cover to cover multiple times, just because I love. And then I graduated to Agatha Christie. So I started very young. My dog is even named Drew after Nancy Drew. So no, it's just been recently that I kind of you'd think I would have done this sooner, but put two and two together and go, oh my gosh, I had this passion as a child, and now look at, I've spent my entire career in the world of mysteries. How lucky am I that interest when I was younger turned into this career that I never expected would have happened. I guess it was this solved case, the Patricia Stallings case, about the woman who was wrongly imprisoned for murdering, she was allegedly had murdered her child, but she was convicted. I think because that was a solved case, we shined a light on that situation, on that case, and brought about, this woman got out of prison because of the show. And I think that the emotional stories are always the ones that get my attention. On that one, I don't know, but that one just really touched me. There's just so many cases, so many stories.
Oh yeah, that was what was it, over 600 solved cases, I believed.
Well, there's about 260 cases have been solved, but that's of the solvable cases, because you've got your ghosts and your UFOs, so we don't count those because those aren't solvable. So 260 cases of the solvable cases, and that's over 25%. Unsolved can't take credit for solving some of the cases. A lot of those have been solved recently because of DNA hits and things like that. But they're cases that we profiled that have been solved, like the Golden State Killer. We did that as an unsolved mystery, and that has been solved. That's a good example of a recent DNA solve. I think the cases that surprised me the most were the ones that got solved before the episodes even aired. There was one, on NBC, they would do a promo of the show, and they happened to promo the face of this guy who was wanted for being a serial child molester, I believe. And somebody watched the promo. They saw his face on the promo, and they contacted authorities, and he was arrested 2 hours before the show even aired. So those were surprises. Law enforcement would be in touch with us right away. Of course, we aired the story, but and then we had an update team that would go out wherever the updates were happening, so we could do an interview with law enforcement or the family members and put together those updates. That was one of the most challenging parts of actually producing the series, because we would have our 50, at the time it was 53 minutes of content all locked in, and then something would get solved. And I think Raymond in the documentary talks about that. And then you'd have to scramble to open it up and make room and drop it in so that the audience had the information as soon as we could get it to them. Now you have social media. Back then, if a solve happened in Peoria, somebody in San Diego isn't going to necessarily know about it unless we put it on the show. But now everything's on social media. We have unsolved.com, the website, so people can see things as they get solved, and we keep that up to date all the time. So things have really changed, you would hope, in 35 years. Yeah, well, we go back into what we call the vintage episodes, and about twice a year, and we put cards at the end, and we narrate. It's not Bob anymore, but we have a voice narrate and say that this case has been solved. This, might be somebody who's let out of prison. It's not fair that the story is still airing and they've served their time and now they're out. And, we need to let the world know that. So if a case gets solved by a DNA hit or something, we go in and we update every episode that's out there. And there's times if we're not quite quick enough that one of the viewers will write to us and say, hey, you need to update this episode, because they're on it. They are on it. The Unsolved Mysteries fans, they are the best fans in the world. I think that the behind the scenes stories, I think that's they can't see that in any of the episodes that exist, and I think that would be the most interesting thing to me. I mean, that's kind of why we put it together, is just a glimpse into a very small glimpse into the making of Unsolved Mysteries and some of those stories. There's so many stories, and you could sit down with every different director or producer, and they would have a different story. There was one director I remember who he was producing a ghost story, and he was absolutely sure there were so many weird things that happened on that production that the crew kind of came home, and especially the director, just absolutely convinced that there really was a ghost there, and that ghost had been showing himself or herself to the crew. Just so many stories everyone has. It's not just the fans from back in the day. It seems that's another surprising thing that I think about the series, is that it's become multi-generational. People know the name Unsolved Mysteries, and it's created more fans along the way. We've rebooted on Netflix, and that's helped. And that's helped create some new, more contemporary fans. But the fans have never let us down. They are out there. Until the day I die, I nothing makes me more proud, other than my 3 children, than Unsolved Mysteries. And I can't look back and say, oh, I wish I had done this or wish I had done that. Unsolved isn't the only thing that the company has produced. We produced over a dozen TV movies. based on true stories. We and other reality series, but nothing has felt as gratifying. There's nothing that I'm more proud of than Unsolved. So as long as somebody wants us to produce episodes, we will produce episodes, and try to keep solving these cases. I think so. I think that we always tried to produce episodes that were relatable. Oh, that could be me, or that could happen to me, or what would I do if that happened to me? So we tried, and there was always an emotional component to most of the stories, not ghosts or UFOs necessarily, but sometimes. Um, so yeah, so creating relatable stories, and the solvability. I mean the being able to see cases get solved. People get excited about that. Oh, that guy got caught, or that family was reunited. I think that there's a heartwarming element to it. And the variety of stories. We weren't just one category. We weren't just a missing or a wanted. We had, you didn't, if you could sit through if you were a UFO fan, you could sit through a missing persons case. It's 7, 8, 10 minutes long, knowing that you're going to get to a UFO case. And so we liked the kind of the shorter episodes, because we could get more stories out there. And then we would do roll calls, which would, like a FBI wanted roll call or something, where we would do more faces, just kind of roll through some faces. Have you seen this person? So yeah, I think that was the success of it. I don't know.